Welcome to the Recovery Works class, Word 2, Tables, Charts, and Graphics. For this course, you'll need to be in Word. If you have not yet launched Word, go ahead and stop the course, launch the Word program, and then return to the course when your screen displays like mine does. We'll begin this course by learning how to create and format a table. We'll begin by inserting a table. To insert a table, move to the Insert tab and click. Next, move to the Table button and click on the arrow. There are two ways to insert a table. We'll begin by using the Insert Table command. Move under the Insert Table grid to the Insert Table command and click. At the Insert Table dialog box, you will use the arrows to select the number of columns and number of rows. In this example, let's create 3 columns and 3 rows. If you would prefer, you can key in the numbers instead of using the arrows. Next, click the OK button. You have now inserted a basic 3-column, 3-row table. The table is made up of small rectangles. Those are called cells. Notice that the insertion point is flashing in the top left cell. To input information into the table, you'll key information into the table row by row, and you will press your Tab key to move from cell to cell. Let's create a table listing course names, dates, times, and hours. To begin, type course. Press the Tab key, and then type date, press the Tab key, and then key time. Next, press the Tab key. Make sure you press the Tab key, not the Enter key. The Enter key will add more space to your cell. It will not take you to the next row. Let's finish keying the information in the table. Remember, if your keying speed is not as fast as my keying speed, you can always stop the course when I've got the complete table keyed in, and then finish keying your table and then continue with the course. We'll type the name of 3 courses, so we'll have to add a row. Now when you get to this last row, to add another row, you'll press the Tab key. Now you've created a new row. So that's the basics of creating a table. Let's save the table by moving our mouse to the Save button. And clicking. You may either save to the Documents library, or if you're using a flash drive, that's what I'm doing today, you can save to the flash drive. To save to the flash drive, you'll need to find your flash drive. It will be the last item listed in the computer section. Yours may have a different name than mine and a different letter, but you'll want to click on the flash drive if you're using that. And for file name, we'll call this Course Table. And then press the Enter key to save. Notice when you create a table, 2 new tabs appear at the top of your screen. Those include the Table Tools Design tab and the Table Tools Layout tab. Let's work with the Table Tools Layout tab. Move your mouse to the Layout tab and click. Let's begin by working in the Rows and Columns group. Notice this group allows you to insert rows above and below and columns to the left and to the right. Let's insert a column at the end of the table to calculate the number of hours for each course. To do that, you'll want to make sure your insertion point is somewhere in that last column. You don't have to select the column, you just want to make sure the flashing insertion point is within the last column. Next, you'll click on the Insert Right button, and just like that, you've inserted a column. Let's go ahead and add some data to the column. Click into the first cell at the top of the column and type hours. And the best way to move down within the column is to use the down arrow on your keyboard. Press the down arrow, key 4 for hours, and we'll just continue that process to press the down arrow and then key numbers. Let's save the file. And now let's add a row. To do that, click anywhere into the column that begins with Word, and then move to the Rows and Columns group and click the Insert Above button. Now let's input the information about an internet class. And then we'll save the file by clicking the Save button. Let's use other commands in the Table Tools Layout tab to continue to format the table. Click on the Table Tools Layout tab and notice the Delete button. Go ahead and click the arrow underneath Delete so that you can see that this button will allow you to delete cells, columns, rows, or your whole table. Let's practice removing a row by removing the Internet row. Move into the Internet row and click, and notice your insertion point is flashing at the end of the Internet row. If your insertion point is flashing somewhere else inside the Internet row, that is certainly fine. So to delete this row, we'll move to the Delete button and then move to Delete Rows. And now that row is deleted. Let's go ahead and save our file. Next, let's add a title row. To do that, click anywhere in the top row so your insertion point is flashing. Next, click the Insert Above button. Then click on the first cell of the table. Type Class Schedule. Next, let's center the title over the table by merging the cells. To merge the cells, we'll need to select the row. To do that, move your mouse to the left of the first row until an arrow that points up and to the right displays. Next, click to select the row. Then, in the Table Tools Layout tab, move into the Merge group and click on the Merge Cells button. The cells are now merged. Notice in the Table Tools Layout tab, there is an Alignment group. There are 9 alignment buttons, and those are used to align data from left to right or from top to bottom. In this case, let's click the middle button for Align Center. Now we have created a title by merging cells and centering cells. Next, let's add a row to the end of the table. To do that, move your mouse, notice that it looks like an I-beam, to the last cell of the table and click. Next, press the Tab key on your keyboard. I'm going to show you how to create formulas in a table. So in this cell, we'll type total. Press the Caps Lock key on your keyboard and then key total. And then press Caps Lock to turn that back off. Press the Tab key 3 times so that you are in the last cell of the table. To create simple formulas, such as sum or average, you can use the Formula button in the Layout tab. The Formula button is the last button on the right-hand side of the Table Tools Layout tab. Click on the Formula button, and notice that this formula has already been set up for you. It's a formula, so it begins with equals, and then it includes the formula sum, and the arguments are in parentheses. Because your insertion point is at the bottom of a column, the argument is simply the word above. It's as easy as that to create a formula to sum. You will simply go down to the OK button and click, and you now have summed the number of hours if somebody were to take all of the classes. Let's save the file by clicking on the Save button. So those are the basics of inserting a table and then formatting it by inserting rows and columns, deleting rows and columns, merging cells to create a title row, and creating formulas. Next, let's talk about the design of your table. Move to the Table Tools Design tab and click. To apply a table style, move your mouse to the Table Styles group, hover over the styles to see that style applied to your table. If you'd like more choices, click the More button. You'll be able to scroll through the choices. Go ahead and select any style that you'd like. I will select this particular style. And you can see that it adds shading, as well as in some instances changes font color, and may add formatting such as bold. Let's save this table. Move to the Save button and click. Now let's insert another table and use a different method. Make sure that your insertion point is underneath the table. Move your I-beam underneath the table and double click. If your insertion point is closer to the table than mine is, press the Enter key a couple of times so that there is some space between the table you just created and the new table that we're going to insert. This time, instead of using the Insert Table dialog box, we'll use the Table Grid. Move to the Insert tab, click the arrow under Table, and to use the grid, you are going to move your mouse without clicking over the grid and select how many rows and how many columns you would like for your table. In this case, let's select 3 columns and 3 rows. So that's just another method of inserting a table. It really is a matter of preference how you would like to insert a table. I've already keyed information in the table. Go ahead and stop the class and key the information exactly as I have it keyed. When you're done, return to the class and we'll continue to format our table. Next, we'll learn how to change the width of columns. For example, there's a lot of white space in the name column. Let's go ahead and change the width of the column. To do that, move your mouse to the boundary line between columns 1 and 2. You'll have to be very precise about that. When you move it, you'll see a double-headed arrow. Now there are 2 ways to change the width. The first way is to change it manually. So remember, the double-headed arrow is displaying. You'll press and hold down on your left mouse button. You'll see a dotted vertical line, and you'll press down on the left mouse button and move your mouse. That changes the width. A faster way to change the width is AutoFit. For AutoFit, you'll need to make sure that you go to the boundary line between the columns, and once the double arrow displays, you will double-click your left mouse button. That will resize the column so the width is the width of the longest entry. Let's use the AutoFit method for column 2. Move your mouse to the boundary line between columns 1 and 2, and at the double-headed arrow, double-click. Do the same for column 3. You'll move to the boundary line, and when the double-headed arrow appears, you will double-click. Let's add a title row to this table. To add a title row, your insertion point will need to be in row 1. It should already be there. Next, move to the Table Tools Layout tab, and in the Rows and Columns group, click the Insert Above button. Next, click in the new row and type Staff Directory. Next, let's center the title over the rest of the table by using the Merge Cells command. To do that, you'll need to select the row. Move your mouse to the left of column 1 until an arrow that points up and to the right displays. Next, click to select the row, and then in the Merge group, click Merge Cells. Center align the title by moving to the Alignment group and clicking the middle button. Next, click in any row of the table outside of row 1. Now row 1 is not selected. Next, select a table style. And finally, let's center the table on the page. To do that, make sure your insertion point is in the table. Next, move your mouse into the table and right-click. At the shortcut menu that displays, click on Table Properties, and in the Alignment group, click the Center button. Next, click the OK button. And now your table is centered. Save your file by moving to the Save button and clicking. And that finishes our section on inserting and formatting tables. The next section of the class will focus on using charts. Use charts to visualize data. Let's create a chart to show attendance for the first quarter of the year. To insert a chart, begin by moving to the Insert tab and clicking. Next, click the Chart button in the Illustrations group. At the Insert Chart dialog box, select the type of chart you would like to insert. We'll use the default chart selection. That is a clustered column chart. You'll notice that column is selected from the menu. And in the choices for column charts, clustered column chart is selected. Click the OK button. When you create a chart in Word, an Excel worksheet is opened. The Excel worksheet is where you will enter data. Notice that there is already data in the Excel worksheet. We'll replace that with data about class attendance. An Excel worksheet displays rows and columns. The column headings are labeled with letters, and the row headings are labeled with numbers. Each row and column intersects into a cell. Those are the small rectangles you see in the worksheet. And each cell has a name. The name is where the column and the row intersect. Let's begin by clicking on cell B1. That's where the data Series 1 displays. Let's replace Series 1 with January. To do that, type January, and it will replace the data that was already in the cell. Next, press the Tab key on the keyboard to move to cell C1. And next, type February. Press the Tab key and replace Series 3 with March. Next, click on cell A1 and type Word. Press the Tab key, and then we'll replace the data in cells B2, C2, and D2. We'll begin with B2. We'll press Tab to move to the next cell. When you're done keying the information in row 2, press the Enter key, and then you're ready to type the information in row 3. Remember, you'll press the Tab key to move to the next cell. As we're keying in the Excel worksheet, it will plot the data in the chart in Word. Remember, you'll press Enter to begin row 4. We won't be using the category 4 information, so we'll resize the chart data range. Notice the instructions to do that in the Excel worksheet. It reads, to resize chart data range, drag lower right corner of range. Move your mouse to the lower right corner of the range until a double-headed arrow displays. Next, press and hold down on your left mouse button and drag until the chart data range is A1 through D4. That's all you have to do in Excel. You'll want to make sure that you have everything spelled correctly and all the numbers correct. When you are certain everything is how you need it to look, you can close the Excel worksheet. You don't need to save the Excel worksheet. It will be saved with the Word file. To close the Excel worksheet, move to the red X on the top right of the window and click the Close button. My view is very large. If yours is also more than 100%, use the zoom controls to change it back to 100%. Great. Now you can see the chart that you have created inside of Word. Notice that the chart is selected. It has a thick border around it. You'll also notice that 3 new tabs display once you have inserted a chart. Those are Chart Tools Design, Chart Tools Layout, and Chart Tools Format. Let's begin working with the Chart Tools Design tab in order to change the formatting of the chart. We'll begin on the left-hand side of the ribbon of the Chart Tools Design tab. Let's start with the Change Chart Type button on the far left of the ribbon. Move your mouse to the Change Chart Type button and click. This will allow you to change the chart type. Let's change the chart type to bar. Move to bar in the menu and click. Next, select the style of bar chart. Let's select Stacked Bar. Next, click the OK button, and you'll notice the change to your chart. We won't cover all of the buttons of the Design tab. I'll point out the ones that are used most often. So next, let's talk about the Edit Data button. That's in the Data group in the Design tab. It's important to understand if you want to edit data by adding, changing, or removing data, you must click on the Edit Data button. That will display the Excel worksheet. Click on the Edit Data button, and you'll notice that the Excel worksheet that you originally typed in order to create the chart displays. Let's make a couple of changes to this. Let's change some of the numbers. Click in cell C4, and let's replace 35 with another number. Key 55 and then press Enter to confirm that data. Next, click in cell D4 and key 45, and then press the Enter key on the keyboard. Remember, to return to your Word document, you'll need to close the Microsoft Excel window. It is not necessary to save. Move to the Close button, the red X at the top right-hand side of the Excel window, and click. And those changes have been made to your chart. Next, let's discuss chart styles. That's a very easy feature to use. To change the chart style, you'll simply click on a chart style. Notice there's a More arrow at the bottom right of the Chart Styles group. Click on that for more choices. Let's change the chart style to Style 26. That's the 4th row down in the 2nd column. And you can see the change to the style. Next, click on the Chart Tools Layout tab. The most important part of this tab is the Labels group. Notice that the Labels group allows you to change the settings for chart title, axis titles, legend, data labels, and data table. Let's begin by adding a chart title. Click on the chart title arrow. Notice that none is currently selected, so a chart title is not displayed. Move to and click on Centered Overlay Title. You now have a chart title. Let's replace the chart title with other text. Move into the chart title placeholder and notice if you touch the left-hand side of the C, your mouse pointer changes to an I-beam. With the I-beam displayed, you'll be able to drag across the text to select the text. Next, key Class Attendance. And now you've added a chart title. We have a legend that displays on the right-hand side. Let's change the display of the legend. Move to the legend arrow, click, and change from Show Legend at Right to Show Legend at Bottom. Next, let's add data labels to make the information in our chart easier to read. Click on the Data Labels arrow, and then click on Center. And there are data labels. Another option for displaying data is a data table. Click the Data Table arrow. Next, click Show Data Table. Notice that a data table now displays that is also designed to help your audience understand the data in your chart. It's recommended that you either use data labels or data table. Let's leave the data table and turn the data labels off. To do that, move to the Data Labels arrow, click, and then select None. Let's also change our chart title and move it above the chart to make it easier to read. Click on the chart title arrow and next click above chart. So now we've inserted a chart, change the chart type, and change the layout of the chart by adding a chart title, moving the legend, and adding a data table. Let's save this file as my chart. To save the file, move to the Save button and click. You may save to the Documents library or you may save to your flash drive. I'm going to go ahead and save to my flash drive. So I'll move to the Computer section and click on my flash drive, which is called Removable Disk. Let's change the file name from Doc1 to My Chart. Select Doc1 and key My Chart. Next, click the Save button. Next, let's insert a pie chart. To do that, move your mouse pointer to the Insert tab and click. Next, click the Chart button. In the menu, click Pie, and then click on the Pie in 3D button. Click the OK button. Notice that a pie chart has only one column for data. Our sample pie chart displays sales. Let's leave this as a sales pie chart, but let's practice changing data by changing the numbers in column B. Begin by clicking on cell B2 and change the number to 1,000. Next, press the Enter key and key 1,500. Press the Enter key and key 1250 and finish by pressing the Enter key and keying 1100. Make sure you press the Enter key. Remember, when we insert a chart, an Excel spreadsheet appears, and any data we key in the Excel worksheet will display in our word chart. To return to the word chart, close the Excel worksheet by clicking the Close button. Let's change the chart style by clicking the More button in the Chart Styles group. Select Style 20, the fourth column and the third row. Next, let's add data labels. Click on the Chart Tools Layout tab and then click Data Labels. Next, click Center. And you've now added data labels and we are finished with the pie chart. Press Ctrl S to save the file. That is the end of the section on inserting and formatting charts. So close this document by moving to the File tab and then clicking on Close. In the next section of the course, you'll learn how to use graphics. We'll create a flyer and we'll insert clip art, shapes, and text boxes. To begin, you'll need to open a new document. And the easiest way to open a new document is with the shortcut key Control N, as in N for new. So press and hold down the Control key on the bottom left of your keyboard and then press the letter N on your keyboard. And you've created a new document. When you're working with graphics, you'll want to move to the Insert tab. Go ahead and move your mouse pointer to the Insert tab and click. Find the Illustrations group in the Insert tab, and notice included in Illustrations are buttons for clip art and for shapes. So let's begin with clip art. In this scenario, we'll create a flyer for an annual picnic. So we're going to open up the clip art pane and then we'll search for picnic clip art. Notice there's also a picture button. That would be for pictures that are stored on your computer, but in many instances, your resource for images is going to be using clip art. Click the clip art button. The clip art pane opens and you can search for whatever it is you're looking for. In this case, let's search for picnic. And then press the Enter key, or you could click the Go button. Make sure you have a check mark next to Include Bing Content. That will use the Bing search engine to search for picnic items. And some of these are photographs and some of these are illustrations. Your clip art display may look different than mine, but see if you can find this simple picnic basket. It appears at the very top of my clip art. If yours doesn't, Scroll down to see if you can find it, and if you can't find it, find something similar. Now to use the clip art, you're going to move your mouse into the clip art and click. And now it appears on your page. When you have inserted an image, a new tab displays, and it's called the Picture Tools Format tab. That will allow you to format the image. For now, we won't use that tab. We'll come back to that later. What's most important to understand about images that are placed on your page when you use the clip art pane is that they do not move. When we are working with any type of graphic and we move into the graphic, a four-headed arrow displays, and that indicates that we can move the object. But I want you to notice that I can't move the object. And that is because by default, and remember default is how the program is set up unless you make a change to the setting, this image is in line with the text. Notice that it is left aligned just as all text is in our document, and we could change the alignment, for example, to center or to right. Let's go ahead and move it back to the left. But you probably want more flexibility in being able to move your image. So I always suggest to people that they change the setting for the image from in line with text to square. And the easiest way to do that is to use a shortcut menu. A shortcut menu will display when you right-click. Now it's very important that you move your mouse into the image and then right-click, because you want to make sure the shortcut menu is the menu used for images. Now there are a lot of choices in here, but the one I want to focus on right now is moving down toward the bottom to wrap text, and notice that in line with text is selected. You have different choices here, but I want you to go ahead and move to square. If you were working in a longer document with paragraphs of text, you might want to make a choice other than square. Square simply means that the image would display in a square on the top left of the paragraph. You could also choose tight so that the text was closer to the image, through if you wanted the text to go over the image, or top and bottom if you wanted some of the paragraph text to go on the top and some to go on the bottom. And those are tiny icons that you can see to the left of each of your choices for square, tight, through, top, and bottom, but they actually show you how the text would flow in relation to the image. At this point, we're just going to go ahead and choose square. We don't have any text. We're not going to have paragraphs of text. The whole reason we're doing this because we want to be able to move this graphic. Now if you move into the graphic, notice that you can move it. So just press and hold down with your left mouse button and practice moving that. And then I want you to go ahead and put it at the top center of your document. If you click on the Picture Tools Format tab with the image selected, I want you to notice there's an Arrange group, and one of the most important buttons inside the Arrange group is the Align button. So click on that, and there's lots of different choices in here, and we're just talking about the basics of using this today. So I want you to make sure that you understand how to use the Align Center command. That's important because it will allow you to align an image left to right. And notice I'm using the terms image and graphic interchangeably. So a graphic inside of Word is any type of an object. It could be a clip art image like we're using right now. It could be a shape. It could be something called Smart Art. It could be a text box, which I'm going to show you as we continue to work with this flyer. So remember, a graphic is any type of an object in Word. And this particular graphic that we're working with is an image. It's a clip art image. So we've gone ahead and we have inserted an image. We're done with the clip art pane, so let's close the clip art pane. Move to the X in the clip art pane and then click. Now let's go ahead and insert text. We want to insert text underneath the picnic basket. To do that, we need to move the insertion point underneath the picnic basket. Take your mouse pointer, it will change to an I-beam, and I want you to double click. That's going to move it down below the picnic basket. Let's go ahead and insert our text. Press your caps lock key and type annual picnic. Press the enter key and let's type a date of June 23rd, 2019. Press your enter key and we'll type the times as 12 to 4 using a dash there. Press the enter key and let's type Perry Park as our location. Now notice that this text is following the default font settings. It's at 11 points and it's left aligned. Typically in a flyer, text is center aligned, and typically the main text in your flyer is going to be larger than 11 points. It's usually at least 16 points, and sometimes it may even be as much as 32 points, depending on the amount of text you have in the flyer. So let's change the formatting of the text. To do that, select the text, move to the font group, click the down arrow next to font size, and let's go ahead and change that to 28 points. Now, if you were creating this on your own and you didn't have my guidance and you weren't sure how large to make the font, instead of selecting from the font size group, you could come to this button called Grow Font, and notice that actually makes the font larger. See how it's increasing? And that allows you to eyeball to make a decision about what size you would like the text. I think 48 is too large, so I'm going to use the Shrink Font button. I'm going to click it a couple times, and I'm going to bring that to 28 points. In addition, let's center the text, so move into the paragraph group and choose the Center Align button. And let's also add bold. Let's click on the bold. Okay, so we're making some progress in our flyer. Let's go ahead and save this. Quickest way to save a document is to press Control S. And notice this document is called Annual Picnic. It is just pulling up the first words in the flyer. And that is certainly a great name for our flyer. So let's just leave it at Annual Picnic. Now it's going to save into your Documents folder. If you want to save it to your flash drive, you can. So if you're going to do that, remember you would have to scroll down, and if you're using a flash drive, it would display as the last item, and you would click onto that. I'm going to save mine to the Documents library, and then click the Save button. All right, now let's go ahead and insert a shape. Now notice my insertion point is in the first line of the flyer. It can stay there because when I insert a shape, a cross here will display as my mouse pointer, and I can decide where I want the shape to be located. And I also want to point out to you, if you want to key text in a shape, your shape is automatically set up to allow you to key text. So we're going to insert a rectangle shape, and we're going to put some information about the type of dish that we want each person to bring to the annual picnic. So remember I said it doesn't matter where your insertion point is. So move to the Insert tab and click, and next click the drop-down arrow underneath Shapes. There are many shapes to choose from. Move to the Rectangles group and select the first rectangle. Go ahead and click. When you move into the document, you will see a crosshair. Now what I'd like you to do is to move that crosshair underneath and to the left of Perry Park, and you're going to draw the rectangle. The crosshair is located where you want the top left corner of your rectangle to be. Once you draw this shape, if it's not in the correct location and it's not the correct size, you can always change that. So remember, this crosshair represents the top left corner of your rectangle. You're going to press and hold down and drag, and your rectangle does not have to be exactly the size mine is, but comparing my flyer to yours, it should look approximately like mine does. And you now have a shape. Now we're going to change this a little bit. We're going to change the color of it. We're going to make it red so it matches the picnic basket liner. But before we do that, we're going to key text. Now you don't see an insertion point in your shape, but your shape is selected. And you can tell your shape is selected because it displays handles on the corners as well as each side. Now I want you to notice there's also a green handle in this area. That's the rotate handle. We won't rotate today, so you'll want to stay away from that handle, but if you ever did want to rotate a shape, that's how you would rotate the shape. So because the shape is selected, you will be able to begin typing even though you don't see an insertion point, and the text will appear. Go ahead and press your caps lock key. And remember, if your typing speed is a bit slower than mine, you can always turn the computer off and then you can finish typing the information and then return to the course. So notice I'm going to press enter again. I may have to make, yes, I'm going to have to make my shape larger, and I wanted to show you that. So to resize a shape, you can use the handles. Remember, those are the circles on the corners and the squares on the side. So you would just move, if we want to make this bigger, to the handle, and notice that you'll get a double-headed arrow. Then you can just pull that down. And when I say pull it down, what I'm doing is pressing and holding down on my left mouse button. And because I couldn't see that, I made a mistake. Notice that I have a lowercase l, so let me zoom in. I'm going to have to fix that. So you can see as you're creating a flyer, you may have to do a bit of editing. We had to make that shape larger, and then I'm just going to move my insertion point just to the right of the L, press my delete key, and make sure I have my caps lock on. Okay. All right, I'm going to continue. Let's talk about formatting a graphic. And remember, this graphic is actually a shape. Each graphic is going to display a format tab. So this is the Drawing Tools format tab. We had discussed with the clip art that also had a format tab, that here in the Arrange group is the Align button, and that's important because that will make sure that we align this horizontally or left to right. So press the Align button and then move to Align Center. Now I want you to notice that if you wanted to move this down the page, you'll be able to do that, and you won't have to worry about turning on the square text wrap. Remember, we had to do that with the clip art, but any other type of graphic that you create, you don't have to turn on square text wrap. You'll be able to move it. So let's move this down slightly on the page. So to do this, you're going to move your mouse to any of the borders. So it could be the top or the right. See, as I move it, I am displaying a four-headed arrow, the bottom, and then the left. I'm going to go to the bottom and get a four-headed arrow, and then I'm just going to move this down slightly. I'm just pressing and holding down with my left mouse button, and I'm just going to move it down. Okay, and you might have to move that a few times in order to get it to move. Now I'm going to move it back up again. So all I'm doing is I'm just eyeballing this and moving it around. So now that we've talked about aligning and moving it, and we've also talked about resizing it, let's take a look at the Shape Styles group. In the Shape Styles group, you can move into the Shape Styles group to change the color of the shape fill, which is the inside of the shape, or the outline, which is the outside. If you click the More button in the Shape Styles group, you'll see there are a lot more choices. I'd like to make this a shade of red because the picnic basket has some red in it. So I'm going to move down here to the last row, and I'm going to choose, you can see as I hover, it will give me the description. Let's see if I can get that back again. I'm going to choose Intense Effect Red Accent 2. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Great, and now it has more of a red color. Note, if we click into the text, and then we move back to the Home tab. Notice that the font is in 11 points. I'd like to increase that to make that bigger. So let's select all of the text, and let's move into the font group, into the Grow Font button. And let's click that until it's 16 points. Let's say we like that size. Now we're going to have to make the shape bigger, so remember to do that. We need to resize the shape. We can move to the handle. You'll know you're over a handle when you get a double-headed arrow. That always means resize. And we're going to go ahead and resize that. And one other change I'd like to make to this text is to center align the text. So highlight the text and then click the center align button. And then you can click outside of the shape. And let's save this. The quickest way to do that, remember, on your keyboard is to press Control S. And now we've saved that. When you're working with a flyer, you may need to change the zoom. So when you are working on a certain part of the flyer, for example, the shape, you may want to zoom in so you can focus on that shape. But sometimes you may want to look at the whole flyer. Now I'm at 58% and I can get a good view of how this is laid out top to bottom. So because my insertion point is up here and I really don't want to have to continue to press the Enter key in order to move down to the bottom, I can easily place text anywhere I want on a page with a text box. So you may want to think of a text box as being a container for text. And the nice thing about a text box is it lets you very quickly enter text anywhere you want on your document. So to insert the text box, we'll move back to the Insert tab. Next, we'll move to Text Box. That's over here in the text group, and then click. Now there are many pre-formatted text box. Those are normally used for types of documents like brochures or newsletters. Those are a certain size and they're shaded in a certain manner. We're going to create our own text box. So move down to Draw Text Box and click. Now a crosshair will display. This is similar to when you created a shape. So you want to think about where you want the top left corner of the text box to be, and then create the text box. So move down towards the bottom left of your page, not all the way down, but approximately where I have mine. And you're going to press and hold down your left mouse button, and you want your text box to appear about like mine does. When you're done, you're going to release this. You have now created a text box, and remember, a text box is a container for text. Now that can be moved very easily or resized. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you can see this. Notice that your insertion point is flashing at the left-hand side of your text box. And let's type. We need to make sure we turn our caps lock off, so turn your caps lock off. And then you'll type questions and go ahead and follow and type the contact information that I am typing. Let me zoom in so you can see that better. Notice that there is a green wavy line under questions. Word is indicating it is not a full sentence, but we're going to leave it as it is. So if you're also getting the green wavy grammar underline, go ahead and move and right click and then click on Ignore Once, just so we can remove that. Let me change my zoom back to 100%. So here's your text box. Now if you wanted to move that text box, just like when you moved a shape, you can move to any of the borders. So you could do top, bottom, left, right. Let's move it up slightly, and since we're moving up, let's move to the top till the four-headed arrow displays, and then go ahead and move up. It's as simple as that. Now click outside of the text box. Here's what I want you to notice. A text box has a line on the outside. That's called the outline. You can leave that there, but many times people just want the text to display. They don't want the text box itself to display. So click back into the text in the text box, and now it's selected. You know it's selected because you see the handles, and because we have drawn the text box, if we look at the top, we have a Drawing Tools Format tab. Go ahead and click on that, and I want you to focus on the Shape Styles group. This text box has an outline, and we're going to turn it off. So we're going to click the arrow to the right of Shape Outline, and then we're going to click on No Outline. Now if you click outside of the text box, you will no longer see the text box, but your text is still in a text box. So let's click back on the text. You can see the outline of it. Let's change the font size of the text in the text box to 16. Go ahead and select the text. Use your drop-down arrow and change it to 16. Let's also center align the text. Move to your paragraph group and choose the center button. Looks like my green wavy underline came back again. Let's right-click on that and click Ignore Once. And hopefully that will turn off that time. And why don't we add bold to that information also? Click on bold. Then we'll click off. Now that we are done editing that text box, let's try one more time to right-click on questions and click Ignore Once. That should stay off now. So we have created a flyer, and you'll remember we inserted clip art, text, a shape, and then we inserted a text box because we wanted to put text in a particular place in our document. Let's scroll back up to the top. Let's say that I have decided I actually want to have 3 picnic baskets up here at the top. Let's learn how to copy and paste the picnic basket. Click in the picnic basket, and you can tell it's selected because you see the handles. And remember, when you're working with graphics, right-clicking is one of the easiest ways to perform the most commonly used commands. So right-click, make sure you right-click into the image, and then left-click on copy. That will put that into your clipboard. Now you can paste it. You can just move slightly away from the clip art, and you can right-click, and under Paste Options, choose the first paste button. Remember when we inserted clip art, we could not move it without turning on wrap. But because we copied this image and we had already turned on that square wrapping, we'll be able to move into it, get our 4-headed arrow, press and hold down, and move it. Now let's come over here and right-click and choose Paste. And let's move that over. So you can see how easy it is to copy and paste. Or you could have opened clip art from the Insert tab again, and you could have inserted different clip art. We could eyeball the alignment and the distribution of these, but it's more precise if we use a command in the Picture Tools Format tab. I want you to go ahead and choose all 3 shapes. So to do that, I want you to click on the first shape. You'll know it's selected because it has the handles. Then you'll press and hold down your Control key. With that Control key pressed down, move to the next basket and click. Notice how that selects both of them. And continue to press your Control key and click on the third one. Now they're all selected. Click on Picture Tools Format. In the Arrange group, move to the Align button. And we are going to distribute these horizontally. Choose Distribute Horizontally, and now they're distributed from left to right. Now let's go back to alignment. You may also want to make sure that these are all aligned from top to bottom. So let's move to Align Middle, and that will make sure they're lined up from top to bottom. So your Align button is really useful to you when you want to make sure things are aligned precisely on your page. So let's scroll down and look at our document. Okay, now let's click in the shape. Let's say that we want to change the formatting of this shape. So we'll go to the Drawing Tools Format tab. And I'd like to change the shade of red. If I scroll up, I'd like it to match more closely the red in the picnic basket. We had changed this shape style to add the red. To be more precise, let's go to the Shape Fill arrow in the Shape Styles group. And let's look at our standard colors and change it to dark red. That matches that color a little bit better. When we changed the color, we turned off the Shape Styles. So let's move here to Shape Effects in the Shape Styles group. Let's add our own style. Let's choose Shadow, and let's choose the middle choice and outer. Or if you'd like to make another choice, that's absolutely fine. And finally, let's make a change to the text by selecting hot dogs and hamburgers provided. And let's click on bold and italic to make that stand out. And then we'll just simply click off of that. And then let's save by pressing Control S. Change your zoom so that you can see that whole flyer. I'm going to change my zoom to 41%. You may not be able to read the text on the flyer, but you can at least view the flyer for the layout and see if you like the way each item is on the page. I would like to move the shape down a little bit. I know prior to this we moved it up, but now we're going to move it down. I just want to balance this a little better. I need to have my four-headed arrow display, so I'll move to the bottom border, the four-headed arrow, I'll move that down. I'm going to move the text that begins with Annual Picnic. Because that's text and it's not in a text box, I'll just have to move my insertion point. I'm going to move it to the left of the A and click, and then once the insertion point displays, I'm going to press Enter. Now see, that's actually moved the shape down, so now I'm going to move the shape back up. So I just want to show you, as you're working with a flyer, sometimes you're going to move things around, and when one thing moves, you may have to move something else. So I'm happy with the way my flyer looks. You can adjust your flyer as you want to, so it is designed to your preferences. When you're finished, save the file by pressing Control S. The last thing I want to show you is how you can add a border to your flyer. To do that, move to the Page Layout tab, and in the Page Background group, select Page Borders. Click on Box. This will put a border around your whole document. And select a style if you'd like. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to select this style that has a thick line and then a thin line. And notice the width is 3 points. If I wanted to, I could change that. So I'm going to change mine to 2 1/4 point. Next, click OK, and you have now added a border. I'm going to move this text box up just ever so slightly. We centered aligned the text in the text box, but I don't think we center aligned the text box on the page. Click on Drawing Tools Format. Remember to center align any object or graphic on the page. Move to the Align group and then choose Align Center. See how that adjusted that? It's very important to not just eyeball, but to use the Align command to make sure that things are centered. Let's go ahead and save this by pressing Control S. And you have now created a flyer. Now that you understand how to insert clip art images, shapes, and text boxes, it may save you time when you're creating flyers to use the templates that come with Word. Let's learn a little more about Word templates. Close your file by clicking on the File tab and then clicking Close. A template is a pre-formatted Word document. So for example, a flyer template would already include placeholders for graphics and text. To create a flyer, move your mouse pointer to the File tab and then click New. Notice underneath this area, Office.com templates, there are lots of different choices of templates to select from. To make this easy, instead of scrolling through and finding the template we want, let's click in the Search Office.com for Templates search box. Key Flyer, and then press the Enter key. Scroll down and notice that there are lots of different types of flyers. So for example, if you scroll down almost toward the bottom, you'll see a very simple sign that's simply meeting in progress. You could open that and print that. Or you can be creative and you can change flyers to fit your event. So I'm just scrolling through and I want you to do the same so that you can see how these flyers are designed. I want you to look for the party invitation flyer. On my computer, that's on the second row. If you can't find it, you could come up to the search box where we type flyer and you could add the word party. So when you're searching, it will search for keywords. To narrow your search, you can add more keywords. So by adding party and then pressing enter, notice how this narrows the search. So now I only have 5 flyers to search through. And this is the one we're looking for, the one with the party invitation flyer. So double click on that and that will open up. Instead of starting with a blank document, a template includes placeholders that you can simply select and change. So notice you can put the name of your event and then the other details about the event, but it already has the graphics in place for you. Let's change name of event. So to do that, you'll move your I-beam into name of event and you'll click. Let's change that to our grand opening, and notice that this is already formatted to be in uppercase. So you simply select it and then type. You'll do the same thing with the placeholders down at the bottom. So date and time, let me zoom in so you can see this more clearly. And we'll put location. One thing I want to point out about these templates is many times if it's information in rows and columns, it's been created with a table. So if you decide you don't want to include information, for example, let's say we don't want to include what to bring right here or driving directions. To delete that information, you can't just delete the text because the rows will remain and you will have a blank area between where and RSVP to. So if you remember back to the beginning of the class, when we want to delete rows in a table, we have to select them. I'm going to scroll over just a bit. And now let's delete 2 rows in our table. So to do that, we will come over here to the left of what to bring until an arrow that points up and to the right displays. Then we'll press and hold down and drag. You've now selected both rows in a table. And because this is a table, the Table Tools Design and Table Tools Layout tabs appear. You'll want to move to the Table Tools Layout tab and click. And then in the Rows and Columns group, you'll move to Delete and then make sure you choose Delete Rows. Now you've deleted that. Many times people are not sure how to delete and they delete the text but they leave the rows. If you're in a template and you're wondering if the information that's in rows and columns is in a table, it usually is, but the way that you can confirm that is when you click into the placeholder. If it's a table, Table Tools Design and Layout will appear. So let's go ahead and type name, and then we'll put in a phone number. We'll just do 614-555-5555. Okay, you can see it's much quicker to create a flyer if you have a template. And if you wanted to, you could add to this. So you could add clip art or you could add a text box. For example, let's add a text box with our company name. To do that, move to the Insert tab and click, and then in the text group, click Text Box, and then draw a text box. Remember, a crosshair will display, And the cross here will represent what will be the top left-hand side of your text box. So let's make a text box right down here. And we'll type our company name. Let me go ahead and zoom in so you can see this better, and we'll just make it ABC Company. And we'll put our address. And then we should center align the text box. So we'll go to Drawing Tools Format, Align, and then Align Center. And now that's centered on the page. And we'll leave the outline and we'll leave the fill color also for that. I'm going to change my zoom to 100%. Let's center the text inside the text box. So click on the text, move to the Home tab, and then click Center. And if you wanted to, you can move that. Remember to do that, you'll just get the four-headed arrow and move that down so you're finished with that. All right, so let's go ahead and save. Press Control S. Let's call this Grand Opening Flyer. And then we'll click the Save button. And let's close the flyer by clicking on the File tab and then clicking Close. You are now finished with Word 2. You've learned how to insert tables and charts and to work with graphics such as clip art, shapes, and text boxes, as well as adding a border to a flyer. And you've seen the flyer templates that are available in Word, and that the template option is your quickest way to create a flyer. Thank you for participating in this My Recovery Works class. You can now close Word by moving to the Windows Close button on the top right of the screen. At your desktop, you can shut down your computer.